Hi, folks, and welcome back to Money and Politics. We're going to be doing a very special show tonight because I'm taping this right after Brian Foote, the CEO of Humbl, just delivered his April 13th investor conference call. And it ran somewhere around 35, 40 minutes. I don't have the exact time, but the point is, I think it was a very interesting call in a lot of ways. Although for all of his talents, Mr. Foote is not the most polished of public speakers. So you have to kind of listen closely in a number of ways. There's a couple of surprises. One, I would say I was brought to my attention. I don't know that he wants me to use his name, so I won't. But a fellow Humbl advisor, or investor, I should say, brought up that the earnings call we were expecting was not on the timeline for the second quarter that Brian Foote brought up tonight. It had been on there previously. So they are, I think, punting, apparently, on putting out their first quarterly earnings. Now, that said, without going off and making it sound, I just want to point it out. That's it. There's so much going on that I can understand that they may be jammed in trying to get that out. And anyway, that said, let me go on with some other things. If you want to comment, you can send me an email. I try to follow up with all of you doing that. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, there's the handle, and that works. But that said, let's get on with it. So I think the thing is that we had a very good overview of what they're trying to do. And one of the things, I'm going to have 4 clips for you. One of the things that he said that I thought was a very interesting comment was that Brian Foote wants Humbl to become the Amazon for assets. Let's take a listen.
If we can get to this where the customer knows that when they come to Humbl, they can pay someone, they can invest in an asset, they can list an asset, it's going to create the same level of behavior that Amazon did in e-commerce for, order a package, get it to your door. We want to do the same thing as an Amazon for assets.
For years and years, and I've been to Europe a number of times, it didn't strike me as a problem. You just work within the confines of the system when you go. So I would go, and sometimes you'd go to a bank beforehand and get a little bit of foreign currency from the bank so that you would have some Deutschmarks or French francs in your pocket before you landed. And if you want more money, then you would go and take your American Express travel checks and you'd go to a bank and exchange it for, again, the local currency as you needed more money. Or sometimes the railroads, but you tried not to go there because you didn't get the good exchange as you might get at the bank. And we didn't think anything of it. What Humbl is about is exposing the fact that this is not a good way to conduct transactions. And to that end, it's not only bad for foreigners, it's bad for the local economy. Now, in this clip, Brian Foote is mentioning that there's over 100 countries that are still doing transactions within their economy primarily through cash. And as I just said, it's what we would call the friction of transactions. It rubs you the wrong way. It's slow. You got to go and exchange dollars. And what this is all about, what Humbl's about, is we're going to have an app and we're going to just be able to go and have it boom. You go and you boom, 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 and you pay for whatever it is you're buying, and you send your currency right to the merchant. So one of the things that he's talking about here is what I've just said, and the other thing is you have to have Humbl sign up a bunch of merchants, just as the credit card companies had to do that years ago when they were introducing their products. You got to get the merchants so that if you're traveling to France, Canada, Honduras, wherever, that there's someone there who's going to be able to accept the payments from Humbl. So that said, let's take a listen about how he wants to address this friction within these countries that are primarily using cash.
There are still many countries that are over 50 to 75% cash, meaning paper bills or hard coin dependent for commerce, and we just don't see that as a sustainable means of joining the modern economy. And you don't want certain countries moving faster and adopting technology faster than others, or you get this extreme disparity in wealth distribution and tech distribution and all that sort of stuff.
I think this goes to a point also on Brian Foote's personality, that he takes seriously trying to raise. This isn't just about building a business for him, it's also about raising the standard of living for individuals in those second and third world countries. And as he was saying, when you're dealing in cash, you don't get the technology into your economy. You can't do as many transactions because, again, as I said, that friction that's there. And we take it for granted, swiping our debit cards, swiping our credit cards. Apple Pay to the extent that it's out there. So what Humbl is about is not for us as investors participating in the growth of a company. Brian Foote wants to bring the efficiency of transactional relationships that we enjoy in the United States and places like Canada, and bring that to the second and third world countries. Now, that said, one of the very interesting things that we've all been waiting for is, when will that app come out? Now, he discussed this, and he said how it's difficult to incorporate a lot of things, and they expect that there's going to be some hiccups along the way. So what he is doing is announcing that they're going to roll out the app in different countries, and the app will roll out in the United States, Canada, Mexico, Australia, New Zealand, and Singapore beginning this Friday, and they'll have a second and a third rollout. What's interesting as I look at the countries is they're not rolling out in China. Now maybe that'll come some point down the road, or maybe he just figures that they're up against Alibaba and the government there, and he doesn't want to start there. All right, here's what he had to say about the rollout.
Roll one would be United States, Canada, Mexico, Australia, New Zealand, and Singapore. So that'll be launching on Friday. What's the date on that? That's the 16th. So Friday the 16th, we will be launching Discover, Pay, Tip, Rate, Review, ticketing, and offers in these countries. So we'll be testing it out, seeing how it goes. Give us your feedback quickly. We'll obviously be seeking to improve the product really rapidly. If you're a merchant, sign up for it.
So that's the good news, and we'll see how that goes. And this is obviously very complex, and you're trying to put a whole lot of stuff in a phone. And again, that's just one of the items, as Brian Foote was saying, they're really going through a series of a multitude, I should say, of different steps along the way. So you got the Humbl app, you got merchant pay, that's the lower left box, you got marketplace, NFTs, ticketing, peer-to-peer commerce, that's paying your friends for the drinks last night, That's one of them, and delivery. So that is, again, the multitude of things that is going on. Now, of the things that I heard him discussing, one of the things I thought was the most interesting, and he started talking about NFTs, which I'm still trying to wrap my head around, building NFT verticals. So you got any number of areas where that could be very profitable, such as sports, films, entertainment, fashion, gaming, photography. The way I read that, and sometimes here I'm trying to read between the lines of what he's saying because, again, I'm trying to get my head wrapped around non-fungible tokens. So they're talking about tokenizing assets. And the way I am interpreting what he said, and I'll play this in a second, a clip from what he said, is that some parts of a movie or a photo shoot or whatever could become by themselves, just those parts, a valuable asset. Now, again, I'm imagining if you think of the famous lines from a movie like Casablanca, here's looking at you, kid, play it again, Sam, we'll always have Paris, or The Godfather, grab the cannoli, etc. We made him a deal he couldn't refuse. What if you own the rights to that clip? And just like radio stations, TV stations will buy a library of music because they want to be able to play music, and so they just buy a licensing to have an annual licensing agreement to a library. By taking a movie and having ownership, what if I had ownership of Here's Looking at You, Kid? Then that would be part of that library that TV stations, movie studios, whomever would buy, just as you would buy a musical library, so that you could play those clips in the course of your programming or movies or whatever. And I would get some kind of residual right. So you would be able to do that with tokenization of assets. A movie being an asset, a famous photograph that people want to use over and over, maybe a famous audio clip of Winston Churchill, whatever. You get the idea. So one of the very interesting things I thought he brought up, and it was near the end, was he said Brian Foote said he's looking to buy a studio, almost like a Hollywood kind of a studio. I don't think he literally means that, but maybe maybe he does. But he's looking to make an acquisition on that. And here's where it's also helpful as our stock price goes up. Stocks are a currency. And so Brian Foote is looking to use the stock of Humbl as the currency rather than hard cash where he'd have to go to a bank or so, to use the stock price of Humbl as a currency to buy a studio. So here's with that set up. Here's what he said.
The one acquisition I am really hunting is a studio type of play. So we've had some calls the last couple of days with some studios, creative studios that do a lot of the trailers that you would recognize and a lot of the multimodal content you would see in sports leagues, hype videos and stuff. So I do have my eye on putting the stock to work on getting a creative studio, Hollywood grade studio in-house, because we're learning that the generation of this content is as important as our ability to tokenize and list it. So if we can create, tokenize, and list as a one-stop shop, I think we'll win pretty big.
All right, folks, I won't go much longer. Hopefully this summarizes the conversation. I have also on Money and Politics, we have the full unedited version of what Brian Foote said. If you want to look at it, if you want to go back and reference it and listen to yourself, obviously that's what it's there for. My summation would be this. This is a very dynamic company. as I said to one of my viewers today online, this is not a company where you're selling lemonade on the corner. Now, I've talked recently about INND, which is selling discounted hearing aids at retailers. It's a penny stock. It's about 4 cents, went down kind of heavily today. But nonetheless, that's a rather simple business. I mean, you're selling hearing aids that are less cheaper, and you're getting them out there in stores. Humbl is far more complex, and it is looking to change literally global commerce, the way we conduct global commerce. And that's just one of the things it's looking to do. It's going to create new assets with this tokenization, the NFTs. So I don't want to go, I mean, you can listen to it yourself and educate it in yourself. We're getting movement. We're getting the rollout of the app. And what I would say in closing is, for all of you who think, well, you know, we had this happen, we had that happen, the stock price is down. When you look at what we're talking about in this company, this is why I think this is one of the most exciting and interesting and potentially one of the most financially rewarding investments that I've seen in the last 30 years. And heretofore, they have actually been moving faster than I expected by rolling out the ETXs as they already have within the United States. Is it concerning that we don't have the financials? Well, it would be nice to have that. Yes, it would be. So to some extent, it's concerning. But if they had been operating for a number of years and then stopped having financials come out, that would be more concerning. The fact that they may have had to prioritize to get the app out and move things around and switch around some of their priorities, I think that's understandable. So I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt, okay? It's not like they're, you know, I don't want them to be putting it off for 6 months, but if it's not coming out this week, I don't see that as a major factor. So again, the big thing I would try to say is just look at how much is going on in this company on a variety of fronts. I didn't even touch on the ticketing part, but on a variety of fronts. They're looking to do acquisitions. They're rolling out all of their product lines as was discussed. And I think that when I said so many times, you need to be looking to hold on to this company for 3 to 5 years. And I kind of cringe at some of the people that, you know, had a variety of bunch of stocks. One guy wrote me today and said he had bought, I forgot what the, 100, 200,000, a lot of shares, and he sold them when it was still a penny stock for $500 profit. That might have cost him $1 million when we look back where the stock will be in the relatively short amount of time. This is 2021. How long ago was 2018? Doesn't seem that long ago, does it? If you look at where we will be in 2024, by the time the next presidential election comes around in, 3 years from now, 3 years from now, if you're holding Humbl, I think your life could be dramatically different in a good way because you're holding on to this stock. There are no guarantees, as I say, but that's my insight, and I try to back it up. And you look at the quality of Mr. Foote, how many other people are leading what really is a financial revolution here. Okay, I've gone much longer. It would be good to hear from him. He's going to be on CNBC tomorrow. I forget the exact time. I think it's 1 o'clock, but I don't know. I think that might be, I think he's on from 1 to 2 Eastern time. Go to their website and humblepay.com and Hopefully you can get the actual time. All right, ladies and gentlemen, hopefully this was helpful. Thanks as always for watching. If you haven't signed up, please subscribe and hit the bell. That way you'll know when I post a new video. Well, thanks so much for joining us.